There you
Hi,
go.
wonderful. Thank you, Will. Hi, everybody. Good evening. This is Moses Ross, Chair of the Multnomah Neighborhood Association, and you are here at you're joining us at our April general meeting. It's 7:05 in the evening on Tuesday, April 11th, and we are conducting this via hybrid. So we have in attendance here at the church, myself and Patrick Brunel, our safety chair, and our vice chair, Julie Leet. And,
Brunette.
But not in person, but hopefully
Patrick
soon.
Brunette.
Brunette. Oh, did I miss? All right. So I'll call this meeting to order here. You're making me laugh, Patrick. Stop. We have, let's see here. Let me see if our treasurer is here also. Okay, he's not here yet. One thing I want to do to on the agenda right now, I do need to make an addition to the new business of a motion to allow us to transfer the funds from our banking funds that are currently under the management of SWNI to our management into the Umpqua Bank that we have our account in. Tad will be here. He expressed a desire to make that motion and change the agenda accordingly to add that to new business. So in lieu of him not being here, I'll do it for him. Are there any other additions to the agenda or hearing none? We'll say that we'll consider them approved, and then the meeting minutes from last month are in the public folder. If there's any changes that need to be made to those, please let me know here. Otherwise, we'll consider those approved as well. All right, let's see here. First off, officer reports. I know that myself, I don't have anything at the moment to report because I'm kind of letting the work of our committees speak for itself. At this point, there's nothing really I can add. They're just kicking butt. So I just be prepared here for a good update on what we've been doing to get more involved into the community. The vice chair, Beth, would you have anything? Do you have anything to report?
Yes, I do.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, very good. Go for it.
I appreciate all of the publicity that has been going out on behalf of Multnomah Neighborhood Association. I would like to say that all of the graphics that people are posting need to be described. This is part of a diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it's also part of complying with the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and the ADA. So I hope people will start doing that. I've commented on several of them, but no one seems to respond.
Beth, I can speak. This is Julie.
That's all.
Beth, this is Julie. I can speak to the graffiti abatement removal. I am aware of the requirement, and truly, I apologize. I'm ignorant on the process. And I'd love to speak with you offline about how you can teach me how to do it properly. I'd like to do it properly, not only for graffiti, but for future communication. So I do apologize for not knowing how to do it properly.
Well, I'm glad you asked, because I'm happy to send out a really cool thing that a woman in Australia did a blog about how and why we should be doing descriptions. So I'd like to send that out, and Moses, should I send that out to everybody? Should I send it to you or just to Julie? I think it's good information for everyone.
I agree. And why don't you send it to the Multnomah board email? And that way all the leadership basically will receive it. And
okay.
That way we
and then I would like that sent out to everybody at some point, because it would be really cool for us to be able to take a leadership role in showing other organizations or people how to describe their images.
Amen. And you know, the timeliness of this issue is very solid. Did you have something to say, Amanda?
I just wanted, could you please explain to those of us who are not quite aware of this, what is the problem and the solution?
Oh, the problem is that when you post graphical images or photographs, they are inaccessible to blind and visually impaired people. So if you do a little description, maybe at the this will say how to do it. If you post a little description at the top of the page where you are introducing why you are posting the graphic, or post it underneath in a comment, which the first way is really the better way, and just describe what the image is, the way you would describe it if you were talking to somebody. Oh, I'm posting this picture that's a landscape of some trees with a brick red building, 4-story building, and blackbirds on top of it. I just made that up. Something like that. And then that makes us, it makes us be inclusive.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
And we'll send it out to everybody eventually, but for sure to the board to start with, and then the board can disseminate it how we all see fit.
Amen. Well, I appreciate you, Beth.
Thank you for being
up.
interested in it, Amanda and Julie.
Mhm. Right on. Okay, very good. And Pat is not on the call, but when he gets onto the call, I'll make sure that sometime during the meeting he gives his report. And we have a little bit of, we have had some movement when it comes to the monies. We received here recently the grant from the city to implement what's coming up next on the agenda, and that is the summary of the activity of the community events. Now, actually, let me take that back. I had on the agenda have public safety first, and I had that for a reason, because I was under the, if the cop was here, I wanted to make sure he went quick. He went first.
Yeah, thanks, Moses. I don't know that I didn't get a response back. Usually we go through Sergeant Oliphant, who's I think the district commander or something like that, unless one of our officers is on the call and I don't recognize his name or her name.
Now that makes sense.
So I'm sure they're not here because they're busy doing actual police work.
Oh, coming to tell us stuff. That's police work. Anyway, thank you for your outreach on that, Patrick. It's very helpful.
I didn't want to steal any of Julie's thunder when she talks about the graffiti project, but I did want to just bring it to everybody's attention, if I may, as part of the Public Safety Committee, to just remind people that the city of Portland does provide no-cost graffiti assistance to residential homes, even condos and apartment buildings under 10 units, small businesses less than 10 employees, and nonprofits less than 100 employees. So all you have to do is reach out to them. It's portland.gov/BPS, which is a Bureau of something BPS/graffiti, and fill out a graffiti removal service agreement that allows them to go onto your property, and then a graffiti form that details the tag, provide pictures and the exact location. And they have a target of 5 days response, although with the large volume, it usually takes a little longer than that. There are some tips for trying to deter graffiti. One is to plant fast-growing plants near your wall. Like Rosa rugosa, I understand, is a very fast-growing plant. Put up lattice work trellises near your wall, and certainly improve lighting and visible security cameras. And even having a mural, if you have that kind of space, can sometimes discourage graffiti. Some of you may have recently heard that the Central East Side Industrial Area has a grant program for graffiti removal. Multnomah County is focusing on the East County, east of Interstate 205, for grant programs for vandalism and graffiti repair. So it's something that's on our radar. And again, Julie will talk in more detail about what we're doing this Sunday, but we're part of a larger effort citywide to try to abate this this sort of thing that really is a livability and really a safety issue. I will say one last thing, and that it's National Volunteer Month, which I think is a perfect segue to the Community Activities Committee. And so we are fast becoming, I think, an organization that is whose foundation is volunteerism. And certainly the members of the attendees at these meetings are volunteers. But I think as we expand, I think it's important to remember the spirit of volunteerism, because it really creates community and cohesiveness in our area and throughout the city. So with that, Al.
Well, if I may jump in here, I want to say thank you to Patrick, who has taken on graffiti removal in ongoing basis in our in the Public Safety Committee Livability Subcommittee, which Patrick heads up. So thanks for your work on that, Patrick.
Solid stuff, you know, and it kind of goes, Peter, I see your hand raised. Go for it.
Hi, Patrick. Yeah, thanks for all the work you're doing. A question about graffiti removal. Can one apply to BPS for graffiti removal equipment for just street signs in the neighborhood, or guardrails, or tags that aren't necessarily on your property? I see some smiling there that I don't understand.
I think the answer is yes, but what I described was mostly for private spaces, although they do want to be aware of public spaces. And I see Amanda has her hand up. Do you have a comment, Amanda?
Yes, thank you. I've got some graffiti removal kits that I'd be happy to deliver to anybody. You're not allowed to take it from street signs, but you can remove from anywhere else pretty much with the property owner's permission.
Great, thanks.
Call me if you need me to deliver you a kit.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Julie. So to Amanda's point and to the question, I've been a hobbyist, a graffiti removal hobbyist for about 2 years now. And I've been buying my own equipment, and I was taught by other people in the community how to do it. And then I learned actually from Patrick about a year ago about Metro's program, and it's called the Clean It Up program. They have a Paint It Up program too. And so I called them. I'm like, hey, M&A, we're going to do this thing. And they delivered to me, this is special though, because M&A is special. They delivered 6 kits to me, and they are adorable. They're like buckets. And inside of the bucket are all of the equipment, almost all of the things that you need to clean up tags in your area on solid surfaces. So glass, plastic, metal, not brick or not brick. And on the outside of the box, it recommends the things you should clean up and the things you shouldn't, for example, somebody's private property, those types of things. And so what I did was, on the upcoming event this Sunday, I augmented the Metro kits and added all of the things I'd like in a kit. So it's probably got 5 or 6 other implements of destruction in the kits. And we'll be teaching volunteers that attend this Sunday's graffiti removal scavenger hunt. I guess I'll just talk about it.
And then after
I'll
you're
hand it
finished,
over.
Corinne and you and Pam will be up.
Yeah, and then Corinne and Pam. So Patrick and I are hosting our first annual graffiti removal scavenger hunt. And it's in the border of Multnomah neighborhood. And so it's tags that have been identified beforehand. So we've got this really big map map of sections, and volunteers that show up, we're going to break out in teams, and every tag has been identified already and photographed. And you'll be given a number of them and kits and taught what to do. You'll be able to keep the kits. You go off, and it's like 120 minutes. It's 2 hours. You're going to get a cup of coffee. You're going to run out. You're going to do your tags and then come back and then give us the after photos. So we'll be able to post to Metro and to all sorts of other people, the vast amount of tags that we could remove in 2 hours on a Sunday. So it should be super fun. We'll have coffee and healthy snacks. And we're really looking forward. And again, you're going to be able to be your own graffiti removal expert. And we're going to be building a community of people. When big tags happen, we'll be able to just do a call to arms. Everyone can come out who can, and we'll get rid of them before, the taggers, before the sun even rises. So the meetup is at, thank you, Multnomah Arts Center in the back parking lot, 10 a.m. on Sunday. And anybody who's able to attend is welcome. We'll be jumping in my truck, or Patrick's car, or perhaps a third person if the group is larger, to these predetermined sites, jump out, take care of the tags as we've been taught, and then meet back up. Does anybody have any questions?
That is so cool, Julie.
It's like-
I must say, I do know that there was there for a little while on Facebook. I know that there was another gentleman around town, around the neighborhood. Todd,
He taught me, yeah.
did he really? He's really, I have
Todd
so much,
McDonald? Oh,
yes,
he's amazing. He's amazing.
I have so much respect for that guy. He just went out there and started doing it.
He taught me.
He
yeah.
didn't wait, Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't realize that you were tied in with that, Julie. That's great. Okay.
Sorry.
I have
Stu-
another item for the Public Safety Committee.
Okay, go for it, Beth.
You're ready. It just didn't
Yeah, we're
want-
finished
I
on
didn't
the,
wanna-
okay, we're finished on the graffiti abatement. We'll of course be sending out an email to everybody. Go ahead, Beth.
This is on a more somber note. Last week, one of the radio cab drivers was murdered by a passenger. The passenger reached forward from the back seat to the front seat and stabbed the driver in the neck. And the radio cab drivers would like to have shields put between the front seat and the back seat, but that must be approved by PBOT. So they're asking us to please call PBOT and request that that be done. The phone number is 503-823-5185. We need to keep our cab drivers safe and our passengers as well.
Right on.
Could you repeat the number one more time, Beth, please?
This is the general number for PBOT. I'm not sure that that will take you to the right person, but it's a good start. And I just got this information this afternoon. 503-823-5185, and say that you are requesting that PBOT approve or implement that the cab drivers have shields between the driver's seat and the passenger seat.
Thank you, Beth. Can I just add to that? The public transportation safety has become a real issue. There was not that recent, couple of months ago, I think, a terrible event, which I won't describe, which really re-raised the issue of safety on public transportation. And
Yes.
there's some interest at the state level and with a couple of our state legislators to try to increase funding for safety officers on the MAX and also at TriMet stations. It would be great, Moses, to have a representative that is an advocate for that to come and either meet with us virtually or in person to talk about how we can support that effort, because it seems to be random and it's very unpredictable, but when it happens, it can be very grave, like the thing you just described with the cab driver. So may I
And
make
this
that friendly suggestion to the chair that we try to explore that a little bit further, because a lot of us take public transportation, and even though it seems like a safe corridor here in the village, we're going downtown where some of us are going into East County or wherever on public transportation, and I think we need to be advocates for safety in those areas as well as our own village here.
No,
Amen, Patrick. It is something we should be involved in, and thanks for bringing that up. Yeah.
Well, and I think, just having confidence in the transit systems, knowing that you're safe just facilitates better, more usage. I mean, it's hand in hand.
Yes.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, Corinne, I know you're there. It's your turn, Pam. And I must say that it was really, really cool to see the tea horse.
Yeah, the tea horse was great. Corinne, did you want to talk about Earth Day first, or should we jump into street art first? You're muted. I can't hear Corinne. I don't know if anybody else can.
No.
I'll go ahead and jump into just the street art project updates, and then maybe we can go back to Earth Day.
See that. Does that work? Sorry.
Yep,
Am I-
we can hear you now.
Okay, let me go right now. I've got a window right now between my husband's traveling and my kids are at home with me, and I'm doing okay, so I'm going to jump in on Earth Day, and then I'm going to pass it off to Pam, and then just piggyback a little bit on what Julie and Patrick shared about the graffiti abatement event. I posted a link for a sign up that Julie and I put together for graffiti, so she can have kind of a rough idea of how many people might attend the graffiti event to make sure that they have enough equipment for it. So if you get a chance, there's a link in the chat about the graffiti event sign up. There's also a Facebook event. And then the Solve event, we are partnering with the Business Association. The Business Association started an Earth Day event last year. It was their first annual, and they reached out to the neighborhood association about that to do a Solve event. And this is our second year doing it. Last year, we capped the attendance, or the litter pickers, I guess, at 40, and we had a full event, and we hope to do the same thing this year. Rain or shine, we will be out there in front of Meals on Wheels at 10 a.m. on Saturday, April 22nd. There's also a sign up link in the chat. It's on our website. It's on the Business Association's website. It's family friendly. Please come out. We'll have coffee from Starbucks. We'll bring some donuts. We'll have a tent out there to keep you dry if it is raining. And then we're just going to fan out from Meals on Wheels to pick up litter in the neighborhood. Last year was a very successful community building, really positive event. And we are excited to do it again this year. And with what we learned from last year, we did not send anyone out to the Barber Boulevard underpass, because that area is not as safe for a family friendly litter pickup. But we have organized with Solve that on May 13th, we're going to do a very specialized event with Solve, with a small population of people, about 15 people that are going to clean up underneath that Barber underpass. So I know that there's been a lot of talk about having that area cleaned up. There's a houseless population down there that we will be very respectful of, but we're also going to help them clean up that space. And so that's kind of a piggyback on Earth Day. But again, I posted a link to the Solve cleanup. It's very helpful if you sign up beforehand. We'll be in front of Meals on Wheels on Saturday, the 22nd, to celebrate Earth Day. Be a family friendly event. Everything will be provided. So please come if you can. And then I'm going to kick it off to Pam to talk about the street art project, and then carry it on to Mark. Thank you. Any questions, feel free to put it in the chat or raise a hand.
All right. So I'm Pam, co-chair of the Community Events Committee. And in the last month on the street art project, we have a few different updates and things that we've accomplished. April 1st was our Tea Horse event, which was a big success. We think we had about 100 people come through over the 2 hours and enjoy tea. And we had some announcements about the street art project and other community events. And then we also got to hear from Mark Lakeman, who has also just joined us now in our meeting tonight. So that's the creator of the Tea Horse and founder of City Repair. And we'll be hearing from Mark pretty soon this evening as well. Our call to mural artists closed on April 7th. And after a short, maybe 2-week span of time where we were accepting applications, we were really happy to have received 16 complete applications. And we think that's really successful, and we're really thrilled about that. So just last night, we had a meeting with a committee of 5 people who will be the artist selection committee who are reviewing the applications and coming to a consensus about the recommended person to hire to create an original design for the intersection mural. They're hard at work on that now, working all week, and then on Friday are going to meet to come to a decision. And so we're expecting on Friday to be able to move forward with making an offer to one of the artists, which is really exciting. On our agenda later in April, we've got that we're going to be counting up kind of what we need for paint supplies and looking at preliminary paint orders for purchasing materials. We are asking our artists to report back with a draft design by April 12th. And then after that, we're going to be putting together, this is still in the works, a community forum of some sort to present that design to the community and to have an exchange around what's the idea and are there changes to the final design before moving forward after that.
And did you mean May 12th? Did you mean May 12th?
I meant May 12th. Sorry, I don't know what I said. I meant May 12th. And then again, our painting date that we're shooting for the Southwest 36th and Canby mural will be June 17th. It's a Saturday. If we get rained out that day, we'll be doing it July 1st. Sorry, July 1st is our backup day if we get rained out. So just to keep those dates in mind. I'm checking my list. Corinne, let me know if you think I'm forgetting anything here. We had a lot going on, but I think that kind of covers the high points.
We, the committee that's selecting the artist, Pam and I have passed it on to a committee of diverse community members because we want this project to be focused on a community decision aspect. Like we took the information last month for the word cloud. Pam and I collected information from Neighborhood House and Meals on Wheels, and we talked to people at parks to get as much input as we could. And then we're passing that on to this committee of 5 members of the community. So it is more of a community decision process that those members will then pass that on to the artists that they hire. So it's Pam and I stepping away as leads of this community events committee and putting it on a community of diverse members of our direct community to help support selecting the artist, to try to make it more of a, how many times have I said community event versus like a direct local event. It is larger and more centric on Multnomah neighborhood, which was kind of a big process, and we feel pretty good about where we landed on it. And to keep in mind, it is kind of a tight timeline. We're working with City Repair. We have Mark here, who Pam mentioned is the co-founder, but or is the founder of City Repair. But our timeline for the artist is also tight, so we're moving things along as quickly as we possibly can within respect of the artist process, and then also making sure that we get our paint orders to Mark and City Repair in a timely manner because we get a discount on that stuff. So it's I think just wanted to raise that to everybody here in this general meeting, that we're working through it as quickly as we can because we are in a tight timeline based on the grant, but also as attentively and mindfully as we possibly can on this short timeline.
And I'd like
Excuse
also
me,
to just introduce
I have a-
Matt Parrish, who is a new volunteer we just met that's helping us in our effort to meet our permitting timeline to get us there to the finish line. So we're accumulating more volunteers as we go as well. And I may have interrupted somebody. I'm sorry. I'm done now.
No, this is Beth. I have a question. When you say community, do you mean beyond Multnomah neighborhood boundaries? And are the people who are making the decisions, are they members of Multnomah Neighborhood Association? And are the prospective artists part of, do they live in the neighborhood?
Mm-hmm. The committee is local Multnomah neighborhood residents. The grant application that we submitted was focused on asking for artists from the Multnomah neighborhood community or some sort of tie to Multnomah neighborhood or investment in the Southwest, but we're not making it a full-on limiting aspect of the application. So we have some artists that are very clearly tied to the neighborhood, some that have some sort of passion towards the neighborhood, but we didn't want to completely eliminate anyone. And the concept of the grant is providing art to the community, which means anybody that enters our neighborhood, not people who just live here, but anyone who crosses that intersection, because the intersection we chose is a high traffic pedestrian intersection that leads from our business district to Gabriel Park, with hope that we would expand and do this in other intersections in the neighborhood when we have more time and more grant funding. But it's not, the intention is broader than just Multnomah, but more servicing our community at a whole. So anybody who visits our neighborhood. So we had some asks for a tie to Multnomah or Southwest, but not a requirement on the application. If that answers it for you, Beth, feel free to.
It does.
Let me know.
For the clarification.
Okay,
I
good.
appreciate
Yeah, sure.
Well, thank you very much, Corinne. I think that it's just amazing how quickly you've all been able to pull this together, and it's the energy and the momentum is seeping into our other events that we're doing. So way to jumpstart things. Is there anything more that we need to do to can we support? How can we support you in all these efforts here? Is there anything that, what do you need the most? Volunteers?
Pam probably has something else to say too, but I want to make sure we give time for Mark. But we do have an open forum for applications or for people who want to express interest in volunteering. But it is a sizable project that we want to focus on bringing the community into it. But I can post a link to the application or the interest for volunteers. But we need help with food for the day of painting, painters to come, graphic design if you're interested in posting for flyers, or web design because we're building out the M&A from it's a more independent organization. So if there's anybody who's interested in designing a website or passionate about a 501c3 project, Pam, I'm gonna let you take it from here because my kids are calling at me, but if there's anything else that we need direct help with.
Oops. I wouldn't add anything else to that right now, but I think that was a nice recap from Corinne, and I'll hand it off if we have other committee reports to the next person before Mark speaks.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Pam.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's 7:38. We have 7 minutes remaining before our guest speaker has a half hour of our time to speak. And so transportation, Stephanie McLaughlin's not here tonight. So I'm going to defer. We'll let you do the give the equity report and the community action committee report. And we can't hear you.
I thought I unmuted myself. Now I'm unmuted. Okay, on the equity part, we've been talking for some time on the board about joining the Southwest Equity Coalition, which is a coalition of organizations in the Southwest, for making it possible for people of color, immigrants, refugees, and low-income people to live comfortably in there without being ousted and gentrified by new developments such as the Southwest Corridor Project. It's a large, diverse organization run by 5 organizations, mostly run by people of color, and about 30 partners or members from other organizations such as Southwest Neighborhoods Inc., SWNI, or the Crestwood Neighborhood Association, some churches, some schools, and so on. And to become a partner, you actually make a formal application to SWEC, the Southwest Equity Coalition to SWEC, and say, we'd like to be a partner. And there are some requirements, but essentially you are asked to support their basic charter to bring equitable housing, transportation, and services, maintain them and improve them in this area. One particular thing about the application is you do not have to endorse something that is inconsistent with what you do as an organization. So you're not doing a blanket blanket endorsement. One of the things that people have been concerned about is density in the area, increased density in the area. That's not really part of this process because it's already there. The Southwest Equity, Southwest Plan, and the West Portland Town Center Plan increased density in Montgomery neighborhood, Crestwood neighborhood, and West Portland Park already. What membership in SWEC does is have some say in how that density is used, that it doesn't become gentrification, it becomes a representation of the people in the Southwest in a fair, open, inclusive way. There's more to it on that. I'll be posting on the website a direct link to more information about SWEC. But for the moment, if you go to our website, mnapdx.org, and go to the equity page, there's a section there on SWEC. I won't do any further on it. There'll be more discussion, and we hope we'll have a speaker coming from SWEC to tell more about it. And Mohammed Aljara, excuse me, Mohammed, and he will have more information about what the organization is about. We hope to have a vote on application to membership at the May general meeting, and there'll be more notice later.
Very
Okay.
good.
Okay.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Okay.
So next up, okay, so just to really quickly highlight what one thing is that next month in May, we have the executive director of SWEC coming to speak to us, and that's what I wanted.
Mohammed is not the executive director. He's a staff member for Unite Oregon.
Oh, pardon me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
He is the person to come. He's the spokesperson for neighborhood organizations, for organizations in general. So it's a very knowledgeable person coming.
Great. Okay, we've got 3 minutes here. I noticed that Stefan came into the meeting. Will, I'm going to hold off on the CAC report, if I may. Let Stefan have the next 3 minutes, and then we can give the report during the old business when we're talking about our in regards to the motion that's on the table in the old business section.
No problem.
Okay, Stefan. Hey.
Hey, everybody. All right. So transportation, not much news. We did have a very successful Southwest strolls. We got a lot of people from Peabot out here to Southwest Portland. It was very engaging. And I'm trying to get Corrine, who is one of the planners in charge of Southwest Portland. I'm trying to get Corrine to come talk to this group because over the next 2 years, there will be maybe a handful of projects that's going to get funded and done. Most of them fairly small, nothing like Capitol Highway, but I think it'd be great to have her come speak to this group and give everybody a heads up on what's coming. She's got to figure out what exact feedback that they need to get. And once she knows what feedback they need to get from the community, she's going to come talk to us. And that's about it.
Sounds good. I noticed that they're about ready to really kick off the I-5 under I-5 bridge there at Southwest 26th too.
Yep. And you'll probably notice the construction that's out there right now is a sidewalk and path project that will connect Taylor's Ferry to the existing terminus of sidewalk, which is at I-5. And so unfortunately, they're going to close I-5 at 26 at I-5, but they should be allowing pedestrians and bicycles under that bridge during construction most of the time. So now you can walk all the way to Taylor's Ferry. Once you cross Taylor's Ferry, they're going to put crosswalks in there. Once you cross Taylor's Ferry, you're again on quiet streets that are walkable. So it'll really close that gap in walkability there.
Right on. And the time is 7:45. I love an efficiently run meeting. Stefan, thank you, sir. Appreciate you. So our guest speaker tonight is Mark Lakeman with the City Repair Project. And I had the pleasure of meeting him at the Tea Party. and him and his wonderful daughter. And we decided then and there to have him come and speak with us about his vision for what's how building community can be so important, and the method that he uses, they're specializing in. So, Mark, let me stop rambling and pass you the mic in a metaphorical way. You're on Zoom.
Okay. Well, oh my gosh, so lovely to see all of you. And hi to Amanda. I haven't seen you for a long time. Hope you're well. It's such a pleasure to talk about these subjects. Let's see, how do I begin? I have a list of things that Pam sent me to cover, and the first one is give a brief overview of city repair. And I have to tailor this message kind of depending on who I'm talking with, because not everyone is familiar with the particular challenges that we have in American communities and in specifically Portland. And the way that I like to put it frequently is that Americans literally have to fly elsewhere to visit a village that is the result of a kind of a community process of people identifying problems and then speaking with each other and then figuring out ways to meet their needs. And in that process, because they're tending to do that with people that are place-based, that they see all the time as they're working in their own community, they tend to build community through everything that they do. And that's really almost like turning American reality on its head, because after all, our communities start off as a speculative venture in which someone designs, gets a parcel. Usually a community is named after the developer themselves, as is usually the case on the east side of Portland. And so they will lay out a design. And I'm not saying that they don't have, interesting values and aesthetic ideas. I think in most cases, people do become invested in what they're, more than just financially invested in the things that they're doing. But in some cases, just like with the founding of Portland itself, where Pettit Grove and Lovejoy flip a coin to decide the identity of the city. Our neighborhoods are kind of similar in that sense. And so it shouldn't surprise us that, there hasn't been a single public square in a Portland neighborhood for all of the history of our city. In fact, even Pioneer Square itself was only retrofit as of 1985. We finally had, after about 150 years, 130 years, we finally had a community gathering place that was open to everyone, non-commercial, and it had a powerful impact on the city. So I like to think, even though City Repair is a specific nonprofit, and we do all this placemaking work around Portland and other parts of the country, really what we're doing is a thing in which we're standing on the shoulders of lots of people that have come before us, that have stepped forward to identify issues in their community and then build community through them. And Pioneer Square is just one example, but I think for me, it represents this powerful partnership culture that emerged to contend with the mayor's attempt to stop the public square from happening. And through citizen power, as expressed through the fact that all of the bricks on the surface of the square bear the names of the people who contributed money to actually purchase the square. Because actually the mayor was trying to withdraw the funding that the city had pledged in order to stop the square from even happening. That's a very Portland story. Portlanders are people who will get things done in spite of opposition, even of their own elected leaders. And most times I think that works well, and sometimes it doesn't. But that's what City Repair is about. We were patterned after that partnership to create Pioneer Square. And for the last 27 years since we started this process, we've been looking around at the neighborhoods of the city and saying, well, for the longest time, we've had this really spectacular downtown, which was the crown jewel of American urbanity. Until recently, where we've really gotten a black eye, but still so many amazing stories. We've looked at the neighborhoods of the city, with a critical eye, with an urbanist eye. And we've said, well, okay, so we are developments, vast tracts of housing. Most people don't live close to the services that they need even on a daily basis. Sometimes we have food deserts where people can't even walk to get food. And sometimes there is literally no park within a reasonable distance of where someone lives. And so for us, in the founding of City Repair, we were saying, all right, so we as a city are an example to a lot of people. They're paying attention to us. And that gives us the opportunity to actually retrofit our neighborhoods in the same way we've retrofit our downtown, in a way that can inspire people in other cities all across the world. And the main thing that they'll replicate when they're inspired by our action is to get off the couch and to start to engage in their own community. So for us, City Repair has been working at the smallest scale, block by block, intersection by intersection, to inspire people to become activists in their own lives, to step outside their door of their house or their apartment, and then begin to work with the people around them that they normally would never even speak to. Because after all, in our neighborhoods in USA, if we don't have gathering places, we also tend to not even speak to each other. In fact, it is a statistic that neighborhoods in the United States have the fewest community gathering places of all so-called first world nations, and we have some of the highest rates of violence connected to isolation. So one reason why I'm very interested in this cause personally is because I see that it brings people together. And I'm very excited about the fact that, we are literally talking about establishing common ground. And it seems like in my own neighborhood, just this last weekend when we had all this wonderful Easter gatherings for children, you saw conservative neighbors, you saw all kinds of mainstream neighbors, you saw hippie neighbors, people from all across the spectrum, coming out into a space that they had been recreating for a couple of decades now. And people, sure, they have their differences, but we scarcely talk about the differences because we have so much that brings us together. And I think that there's a promise in that for absolutely every community. In fact, just going a little tangential, I would submit to you that many of the problems that plague us in our whole society come from an absence of common ground and ways that we establish, a basis of seeing our relationship to each other. So I'm so excited about the idea of people being able to retrofit streets into community spaces. Because after all, we seem to have developed for thousands of years that way before the car came even into existence about 100 years ago. And streets were certainly featuring much more community activity than in the last century before that. So I think it's really, in a way, it's about coming home. That's the work that we're doing. And that's what Corinne and Pam are talking about, is helping the Multnomah village, the Multnomah neighborhood, to really come home in a profound way that isn't just for a small group of people who are passionate about placemaking, but it's about everyone and everyone's kids, to re-envision how we think about that space between our homes and ask ourselves, does that space, like it used to do for thousands upon thousands of years, bring us together, or does it divide us? That's a really fundamental question. And I happen to think that the future of our society may well rest upon how we answer that question. So I guess I'm getting on to the next subject on the list that Pam sent, which was the benefits of intersection murals. So I think that the benefits can be limitless, but we do know that the American Journal of Public Health and the New England Journal, the two preeminent public health journals in the world, have published studies that verify that painting streets, installing little free libraries, or any number of other kind of interactive artistic features that get people outside to move around and interact with each other and actually start to identify with each other across the lines, that these actually increase health of individuals and communities, both physically and mentally. People perceive each other differently when there are outward cues that invite people to stop and linger and think of their relationship to the neighborhood differently. It also encourages people to get out and move around. Speaking of that, the active living movement itself has identified that American communities, by having so few pedestrian destinations and many communities utterly lacking even in pedestrian infrastructure like sidewalks, that is actually contributing mightily to the fact that obesity is the second leading killer of Americans. So creating infrastructure, especially places that are destinations that compel us to want to get out and walk around, has already been established to deliver benefits to the communities that do this kind of work. You know, and I want to just say personally, I'm not interested in so much in painting the street. That's not really why I'm doing this. What I'm interested in is employing every single tool we have to engage our kids and build a civic sensibility and a sense of connection to the people that they live among. And it happens that painting the street offers us an opportunity for engagement from the very beginning of the idea to the creative process to the implementation. And it turns out to be a very low cost, quick action, high impact approach that really makes the most of people's time and attention. And you know, it creates a synthesis, it creates a joining, it creates a shared metaphor where suddenly people see each other in connection to other people through the thing that they've created together. So that incidentally is how Pioneer Square actually began itself, with a great painting on the rooftop of the former Meyer and Frank parking garage back, I believe it was in the late 70s or early 80s. So getting on to other practical concerns. Well, I do want to say before getting on to the practical concerns that I have no doubt that there are people who will be opposed to this idea, because after all, they've never seen it before. And then quite likely the only way they've experienced change in their community may have felt invasive to them always. Cutting down trees, oak trees being lopped off and replaced with some giant house that they never heard anything about before it was going to happen. So I think there's a secret way to really bring people into a process, and that's always to honor them, listen to them. And here's an even deeper idea. I think when people come out to defend their sense of place, there's an ancient villager inside of them that is standing up to defend what they know and love. And okay, we could psychoanalyze it and say, well, you know, some people, all they care about are property values and they don't care about human values. And, you know, we could talk about that for a long time. But I think if we could set that aside, which doesn't go anywhere anyway, and just thank people for their passionate interest, and then just see them as a person who loves their community, no matter what their motivation is. It's whatever association they can have. Just receive that and then speak to them at a level where they hear and feel your respect for them, and that you're affording them dignity that calls them to offer you that same dignity. So I think that's a really important thing. You're automatically going to polarize some people in the community who haven't heard what you're doing and they don't understand your goals. So let's always try not to react and try to just be inclusive and listen. The maintenance timeline about these things, it's a mistake to just think that the fun part, you know, is the initial part, the designing and implementation. And there are ways to actually make it last longer. Like if you put a good primer down, you treat the surface well, you wash it, you pressure wash it, you get it all free of oil and grime and particles. And then you put down a primer, and you entrain that primer with the ground up walnut shell friction additive that PBOT has approved, called duck back. Then you put your paint on top of that. Your painting may well last 5 times longer. So to do a good job, do the best job you can from the beginning will give it the greatest longevity and really surprise people on how well it's doing. But then I think it's important in the design process to talk about the fact that we're building community, and this thing that you're designing is a means to bring people together and to build community through this exercise. And then the thing that we paint, it does represent us, but it isn't the community itself. It's only a sense of place that hopefully will bring us back to it. And the bringing back is the important thing. You know, there are villages around the world that do their maintenance. They use the need to do maintenance as a way of bringing people together to dance and eat food and put kids on stage to play music and do plays and stuff. And sometimes this literally takes the form of raising a barn. And other times, like you'll go to an Italian village where they just really built it to last. And so they have a huge horse race that brings them together every year. You know, or they have a giant chessboard as on their plaza and their piazza, and then they have the chess players are actually people on horses and wearing costumes, and they move around and they entertain thousands of people who are watching. So sometimes it's a spectacle, a lot of times it's a maintenance ritual. My favorite place in all the world is the festival. It features a festival, the festival of San Antonio in the mountains of Sardinia. And for something like 300 or 400 years, they have been doing a village building convergence barn raising event where the entire village shuts down for 2 weeks and everybody just helps old people, indigent people, single mothers. They just come do whatever is needed, paint a living room, move a refrigerator, fix a toilet. And then in the evening, they're making and enjoying bread and dessert and wine. I met a guy whose name was Antonio, actually. He's the coordinator of this event. And he was just laughing, like, I am the richest man in the world. I have the most friends of all. Had dinner at his house. And it was true. You could just walk out the door and see one of the most resilient and lovely community experiences you could ever find on earth. And I think that 2-week ritual every year, that's the pulse of the community. The physical infrastructure is one thing, and it's beautiful, but that thing that brings everyone together changes them forever, all the way to the next time it happens a year later. So just astounding. So they use maintenance as a way to come together. And every year, you know, in the case of the projects we do here in Portland, you know, you could get outside to teach kids how to, you know, prune some blueberries or some orchard trees, or plant more flowers the next cycle. Every year you could be planting more pollinator beneficials as part of your maintenance ritual, or building more benches in the community. You know, Multnomah neighborhood could become famous for the most benches per capita of all Portland neighborhoods, for instance, I would move there for that. The day of the painting is also on the list here. We have a very big one, a very elaborate one in our neighborhood that we paint every year, and it takes us about 5 hours. It's just enormous. So if a lot of people show up, just don't use the amount of people that come to the creative process and the meetings as an indicator of how many people will show up. Because when you put out the call that there's something wonderful for children to help with, you're going to get way more people than you ever saw at a meeting. So that's one of the lovely things, is to realize that everyone plays their part. And the more ways you could figure out for people to engage, like to bring food or to bring music, the more people will come. So the installation should take, you know, half a morning to a whole day. And, you know, usually we don't get any rain on the day that we've chosen, but that can happen. If it's a nice dry day and a really warm day, that can affect how long it takes. But, you know, you need to make sure everyone's hydrated, and there's some place for people to get shade in case it's hot. Yeah, suggestions for how to make it a successful event. Really just diverse portals for community involvement, I would say, and invite people to bring things that they can share, kind of like a talent show even. There could be people playing music while other people are painting. There could be people doing different kinds of other activities that also, like to look after kids, for instance. So these are just covering a few of the things that we can talk about concerning this sort of project. But I guess the last thing I'll say before we open it up for people to be able to maybe ask some questions or offer ideas is just that I hope that you all get very excited about this. This is a chance. Okay, let me start over. So much of the time when people are talking about creating or designing, they use old things as examples, like, oh my gosh, ancient Gothic, medieval public squares, aren't they wonderful? I do think that they're wonderful, but they were all created before women had the right to vote and had equity of participation in so many dimensions of the society. And I think the great thing to be excited about now, and I'm also talking about, speaking of equity in the discussion earlier, I'm excited for us to see who we are now. And I hope that everyone can be excited that way. Like going from the smallest amount of community space almost in the world, in our communities, to having some of the most amazing and dynamic and ecologically resilient and statements of inclusivity. Like the thing to get excited about isn't like, oh no, change is coming. What will it look like? Will people be offended by the art? Yeah, those are considerations, but I think then if that's all people are thinking about, then they miss the opportunity to be thrilled to see a reflection of who we are now. What are our values now? Who are the people that we have become? What are the things that we think, can symbolize our greatest hopes and aspirations? Because that's what these very fluid murals can do. So I think it's a thing to be thrilled by. If there's not a single public square yet in the Multnomah neighborhood, although there is an amazing Main Street, it is certainly one of the greatest, if not the best in the whole city. There isn't a public square. So what can it look like? What can it start to say? So with that, I'll just pause.
Thanks, Mark. This has been really great so far. We just want to thank you again for your comments and kind of the overview about what it is that we're working on with this project. And maybe just before we open it up into questions, it might be helpful for this group if you want to say just a little bit more about the village building convergence that happens in Portland this summer, because our project with the MNA Street Art Project is participating in that.
Yeah. Okay. So the village building convergence is literally an attempt, very intentionally an attempt to restore the effect of the barn raising to the life of American people. And our greatest hopes are that people in Portland decide that there's a time in the spring, just like their ancestors used to do, where everyone came out to create common benefit and to dance and sing and share food. That's what we're hoping to reinstill. And we're doing that against, really in contrast to the design patterns and the history of the country, which has not been to facilitate the development or the reemergence of community, but it's more been to compartmentalize and organize us in ways that haven't really taken cultural development into consideration. So I just want to say that for us in 27 years ago, we thought, oh, there's, the main pattern of successful, resilient communities all over the world is that there are community spaces. So no wonder not having community spaces, Portlanders wouldn't talk. So we thought, okay, there's an absence of stewardship culture. There's an absence of a local agency so that people could solve problems, keep each other safe, make sure kids are safe, and all these good things that we would want to see happen. And then we realized at some point, after we started to do this work in Selwood, and we saw people just thriving, and strangely, nobody was moving anymore for a 2-block radius. Everybody wanted to be there. And I was saying to myself, we're just using recycled materials and paint, and suddenly people are changing their lives. Like they finally found where they want to live, not because of the paint, really. It's because we figured out a way to get people to talk to each other and feel connected. So then we realized, okay, we could just kept learning. Like birthday parties started to spill out into the intersection, gigantic birthday parties with piñatas hanging from the trees and children growing up together. And then eventually children having more children, and they all just still live there. They're not leaving. From my travels around the world, whether I'm working on co-housing communities here as an architect, or I'm traveling in other villages around the world, I keep hearing people that are aging in place, like decrying the loss of all the youth. And here we've created this social experiment in our neighborhood where people just don't leave. Intergenerationally, they just don't leave. So we have all these realizations along the way, which is among them is just there's this absence of community ritual. And I'm not talking about any particular flavor of sacredness. I'm saying the tendency to do things annually together, to have great feasts, to have dances, again, about reestablishing that common ground. It's place, it's community power. And by that, I don't mean anarchy. I mean people doing things, as a community to steward marginal spaces, if nothing else, to get people to pick up trash, to get kids engaged so they don't vandalize the whole damn neighborhood, Here's a benefit. Nobody vandalizes our painted intersection, ever. They don't break any of the stuff. We've got a 24-hour tea station on the corner. You can just come and get some hot water and some tea. We got a place to get free books. In fact, it's the first little free library in the world officially. I just want to say I'm proud of that. That's where the Little Free Library organization got their idea from, Ninth and Sherrod. Okay, so you do this kind of thing and all these great ideas. Like that was the idea of a kid to do that. A kid named Tim and his sister Siobhan. That was their idea. So all these ideas, like kids that are used to not being able to have an idea or being taken seriously in the settings that we're talking about, where we're just trying to get the kids to care and get involved, they get to suggest something and then the adults support the creation of it. And then you get kids that love their place so much they don't want to leave. So then we realized eventually that the barn raising was missing, like that our ancestors had had these barn raising cycles that were driving the calendar of time. And really, like once you do that in the spring, then all these people, kiss and dance, then they have children through the fall, and then the wheel of community just spins. So I could literally go on and on about the revelations we've had. Like there's supposed to be social architecture in a community where all the mothers get together to figure some things out, and all the fathers get to, and you don't have to be elected if you're a mother or a dad. You just belong to those architectures. You can actually fly other places in the world and see these social architectures intact. And those are the communities with the lowest crime rates of all and the highest rates of public health that could ever be measured. So we've been realizing these things along the way, kind of stumbling our way to these, these discoveries, but they're just basic. And these are the benefits of doing this kind of work. Just endless.
So our group has been participating in these Thursday night trainings with City Repair that are ongoing through May, kind of preparing us for the village building convergence in the summer, where all these projects like ours around the summer will be happening, and folks are welcome to come and volunteer on anybody's project and just do the barn raising, do the project implementation. And before we end here, I just wanted to invite anybody here in this group who's kind of interested in discussion on these topics and our projects specifically to join us on Thursday nights. We'll be continuing this work with Mark and others at City Repair. So I know that our time is just about over, and I don't know if we have time to open it up maybe just for a question or two at the end. Here, I'll just see if anybody has a question.
I wouldn't mind just taking a quick second to share kind of my own observations of this project, and I'll keep it super brief within my own household and my family. And being involved with City Repair and Mark and the Tea Horse is, I've always been a big proponent of community building and community activity, but my husband necessarily has not been. And it was a really cool experience for him to participate in the Tea Horse and the work with City Repair and Mark and Tila at the Tea Horse activity on the 1st, and to recognize that the kind of the barn raising activity of putting the Tea Horse together is where the real community happens. And it was, and, you know, having my kids involved in it, in more the fine details of the actual process of putting something together versus the higher level planning part of it, or, you know, painting and paintbrushes, but actually having people participate in that, can see how powerful those moments are in the investment that you have in your community. And I just wanted to just quickly point out how I'm seeing that in real life in my own personal involvement in community, which I've always been passionate about, to my kids' involvement in it, and then to my husband, where it's been less of a passion for him, how impactful that's been, and that how proud I am of our neighborhood for bringing this to life, and excited I am to partner with City Repair to kind of help shed light on the value of that part of the process of it.
Right on. Rin and Mark, I'm real appreciative, Mark especially. That was a thought-provoking half hour of what could be, you know, and I'm really happy that we're going down this path, Corinne and Mark. Thank you. I really am. I noticed the time, it's 8:16. Oh, I love it. Okay, Will, you're up next, and you are going to give a report on the community action. No, pardon me, the Community Advisory Committee for the Multnomah SRV. I recently, just some quick background, the part of the agreement between the neighborhood association and the SRV and the other stakeholders that we've been working on created a community advisory committee made up of 3 folks right now. That's myself, Charmaine, yes, oh, I always butcher her last name, and Will Fuller are on there. And so the purpose of it is to act as a conduit, to be able to refer questions, to get questions answered about SRV, about the SRV project, and be able to take any questions and get answers for them from the other members of the committee, which is basically the SRV team and other folks from the county and other stakeholders. So I'm going to pass it over here to Will. And you can talk about that, and then we'll go into the old business section with the motion that's on the table.
Okay, well, briefly, I went to my very first meeting the other day of the Community Advisory Committee for the Safe Rest Village Good Neighbor Agreement, or as we like to say, the CAC of the SRV for the GNA. And we're also involved with GSA, General Services Administration, for the government, which has some impact. But right now, I'm just getting a feel for the concept of the Community Advisory Committee, and it comes down to we are trying to make sure that the good neighbor agreement between the Safe Rest Village and city and county and neighborhood and so on is well implemented, that it isn't just a piece of paper that's ignored. The agreement has not yet been signed by all the parties because there is one sticking point to be resolved. I'm not at liberty to say what that is right now because this is a negotiation time, so we're not there. I can say it has to do with the rights of the neighbors and the neighborhood in a meaningful way. But I do know what's happening, and the people in the Safe Rest Village are acting as if the Good Neighbor Agreement is in place. They're trying, in fact, to be good neighbors, to not be noisy, to not litter. There are no camps within 1,000 feet of it, or 150 for sure, homeless camps. The neighbors who have been complaining about, and quite legitimately in some cases, complaining about the dangers of having a large number of homeless people in the neighborhood, have not complained once about the village itself, which I think is a very important point. We talked about community, and I know one of the things about rural communities, they can be fairly intolerant of diversity. And one of the things about cities and urban things is we honor diversity, And right now we have people who are houseless for various reasons with varying issues. We have people who are housed and live their whole lives in the area with diverse points of view, learning to live together. And that for me is one of the things that when you talk about a village, when we get together, that's important. But so that's my charge as a member of the committee to help that happen. We are also going to be the first point of contact for the neighborhood association of concerns or thoughts or comments about the Safe Rest Village as it goes along and how well the Good Neighbor Agreement is being implemented. So when people have a need to vent or whatever, they can get in touch with me or Charmaine or others, and we will work with them to get their issue resolved properly. It's kind of exciting to be able to do that, to put into practice what Mark said about the getting together on an action. This is a form of getting together on action. You have something needs to be done. You can work together to get it done. It does a great deal to diffuse, or can diffuse, not always, the differences that people genuinely have that might get in the way. I'll stop at that point. More to be revealed as we go along here. Are there any thoughts?
I do look forward to your ongoing reporting. I'm establishing you as a you'll be giving a monthly report on things because you'll be meeting with them on a monthly basis. And so if people can always reach out to you if they have thoughts, concerns, issues, etc. And that's all part of the overall being a good neighbor, that is a spirit that we're trying to maintain here, or not maintain, but impart or to implement, if you will.
Well, if I may, the four parts that I've mentioned in the equity statement, let's reiterate them again at this point and think in terms of community and a village. A place that is open, fair, welcoming, and safe.
Right. Yeah, agreed. That seems to be the theme of that is certainly the theme of this meeting, and certainly the theme of what we're trying to do. I agree with you, Will. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you. And I know that we'll be hearing more about the committee as months go on. We have one piece of old business that we need to take care of. And
before we get into the old business,
yes, sir.
We have not taken attendance, and we are losing people at this point.
Well,
I've kept track of who's
and
here.
I need to make sure that I just double checked on the bylaws, Will, that we need 10 neighborhood association, 10 members and one sitting board member for a quorum.
Correct.
So just FYI, that's where
we also need to keep attendance. That's is there anyone in the room besides you, Julie, and Patrick on site?
Okay. On site, no.
Okay. So is there anyone here who is present, who is not a member, a resident of the neighborhood or own a business or own property in the neighborhood? I'm not hearing anybody that's not a member. We can do a quick poll to get a sense of it. Won't take more than a couple of minutes, okay?
Hey,
and then we'll go from there. What we're going to do is put together a poll on for people on Zoom that will show whether you are here as one person, are you a member, or two people or more, or you're here as a guest. So I'll launch the poll. You check next to the part that represents who you are. A single person is a member, two people who are members, single person who are guests, or two or more people who are guests. Any question? Okay, I'm going to launch the poll real quick. Okay. Okay, got one more person to respond. I don't see it there.
Are you getting the phone, people?
Yeah, so Beth, your phone. Unfortunately, I think you can't do this poll. I've noted you as a manual member. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
so I'm going to end the poll. I'm going to share the results. There were 7 of 8 were 1 member. 1 of 8 was 2 members, so that's 7 plus 2, that's 9. Beth is not counted, that's 10. Moses is one of the board members, that's 11. So we have a quorum here. There may be some other manual adjustments we need to do, but that's enough for the poll at this point. So I'm going to stop the sharing and get rid of that piece of business.
Sounds good. Now,
Okay.
also, Tad, are you online? Let me see if you're there.
Ted?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, sounds good. And we have our motion under new business coming up. The money for that transfer. But first, what we need to do is we need to go into the discussion of the arbitration motion that is currently on the table, that we have the option of remaining on the table or bringing up for consideration. And the challenge that we have had, from the last board meeting, I was instructed to reach out, and I have done that, to the maker of the original motion, our former land use chair, Frank Rudloff, asking him to give us more direction on what he would like us to do with this motion. As far as action item, we need to be able to write a letter, but to whom? Is this, I was really hoping that he would be here tonight to fill in the gaps of for this motion. So yeah, so that's where this kind of stands right now. We do have, with Will being on the committee, the community advisory committee, he's been able to get more detail about the process that is being referred to here, this abrogation.
Abrogation. I can give a brief report on that if you would like.
Why don't you? Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it.
Basically, I've been in touch with the SRB staff at Commissioner Ryan's office to see just where the status is. And briefly, the General Service Administration gave Portland 3 options to resolve the problem that the Safe Rest Village does not meet the requirements of the Emergency West Side Emergency Center. One was to shut down the Safe Rest Village, correct the process. The other was to, I believe, buy the property outright, just get their own property. And the third, or actually the second of the two, was to abrogate part of the deed, meaning they take back the restriction of the deed that it must be an emergency center for some part of the property. And so the city chose abrogation to look at the area where the Safe Rest Village is now, a strip of land that gives road access to that area, and another possible piece of property where the Southwest Capitol Highway project has its marshaling yard. And that is now being reviewed by the General Services Administration. They are providing a scope of work with what they think will be necessary. They will do a survey and of the area to make sure it's all properly identified in square footage. And then we'll provide a proposal to the city to accept or not accept to what to do about the abrogation. Essentially, if the city would buy back that area at fair market value. The motion was to say we oppose this abrogation process, but nothing more about whether we do an alternative. So we're cleaning up the motion, but that's the basic process. Right now, the far as I know, the General Service Administration is proceeding along the line of I laid out a timeline, which I will share on the website at some point. That looks like it's approximately what's going to happen, but the key event is when the actual in June there is I'm at the survey. I'm using the wrong term. It's not the survey, but there is an estimate essentially of what it's going to take. And then at that point, the city will say yay or nay, and they go forward, and there may be an appeal and other things. But there's not an immediate, as far as I know, make or break point before probably June. That's where we are at this point. And that's what the motion is trying to address. So I'd say a proposal. I'm not sure it's formally a motion at this point. There's been no second. There's been no one at the meeting. There's nobody. Is there anybody here in the meeting that can speak to that? Okay, nobody has showed up at a meeting.
Exactly.
Talk about it.
And
Okay.
I don't know if this is appropriate, but at this point, with lack of, this has been on for quite some time, with not a lot of detail on what the position is and with presentation of the issue. Is it possible for me to move to remove this from old business until we are presented more detailed information?
I think we would be, I think what we're talking about is a motion to postpone, a motion to table again. I think until we receive much more clarity on the motion's actions. And so is that what you're thinking?
I just didn't know the right words.
Yep. Okay.
I'd like to suggest something there.
Please do, Ted.
I think the appropriate motion that perhaps you have in mind is the motion to postpone indefinitely.
Okay.
I'll second that. This is Riz.
Thank you. If I understand correctly, on a motion to postpone, there is not a second needed, and it has to be, or I do know it has to have an immediate vote. Is that correct, Tad?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Kind of unique. Am I missing a uniqueness to a motion to postpone?
Well, this is to postpone indefinitely, which means that there's not a time that it has to be picked up again. It doesn't get picked up again until somebody brings it back.
Gotcha. I see what you're saying. I see exactly what you're saying. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to postpone this motion indefinitely then. And we do have a second for that motion. Let's go ahead and go for and have a vote on that. And is there any discussion at this point? Would anybody like to ask any questions or make a comment about this pro or con? Hearing no discussion, I'll just go ahead.
Hey, Moses, this is
Oh, yes,
Stefan.
please. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, this is kind of a curiosity question. As someone who works in seismic engineering and resiliency of cities and how unresilient our city is, I can attest to that. Is there there's zero possibility that we ever get a West Side emergency center at that space, right? I mean, the city will never do that, right? I mean, is that what everybody's sense is?
There's the possibility, but because that was certainly what it was originally mandated to be. Now, will they? The challenge is that the armory is not compliant, ADA compliant or seismic compliant. So they can't.
Weren't they going to like park part of the road repair fleet over here? Because I think, at the end of every night, our whole fleet of vehicles that PBOT has access to repair roads is all on the other side of the river. Mm-hmm. And all of those bridges are basically going to be toast. And so the thought is they need to have some of their fleet just park at that armory. And that way, when Barber Boulevard is collapsed into the Willamette River, they can go kind of piece things together so that we get to the hospital. Because the hospital's on the other side of that steep slope that only has 2 roads to it.
No, I appreciate that.
Anyways,
I'm not sure if the discussion of the eventual out of the stated versus what's happening. I'm not sure how germane that part is to the motion.
Yeah,
Because right now we're at the
agree.
point of pro and con, or those for and against. That is worthy of another discussion, certainly, definitely. And maybe
I just wanted to know if people had any info beyond, like, basically it's some rumor that might happen one day. So, okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Hi, I seem to recall from the original reading of the motion that the objection that he was bringing up was, one, the cost of purchasing the land, which is not going to be insignificant, but also the process objection that I guess is something that he felt the city was not really authorized to do. I would really strongly advocate for him to come and advocate for his own motion, but because I think there's some worthy discussion there. I think whatever we do, the letter will be very symbolic and have, probably no influence, but it is symbolic because we are in the neighborhood. So I'm going to abstain because I'd love more information, and I wish that were forthcoming.
Right?
We've been
Go ahead, Beth.
We've been asking him for 2 months to come, explain his motion. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes, you're correct. You're correct.
So
Okay. So
we're speaking about how we feel about the motion on the floor. I will vote for it.
thank you for that, Beth. Okay, I have two people with hands up. I have Amanda and I think it's Will.
Right. Go ahead, Amanda.
Go ahead, Amanda.
So to the previous, before last question, this is the only place on the west side that we could find that would be good for an emergency center. So I absolutely think the city is going to continue to pursue it as that. Abrogating the land for the safe, getting the land to be city land rather than quasi-federal land, I think is only a good thing. And will help to get us an emergency center. So I would support the motion.
Very good. Okay, and then we have one more hand up here.
That's me. This is Will.
Oh, Will. Okay, go ahead, Will.
Okay, just very briefly, I'm not sure how much we have invited Frank to present his motion. We've had concerns internally, but we haven't had much communication to or from him. That's not so much germane. That why he isn't coming to meetings and so on, I don't know. But there's some sense of breakdown in communication there that I think we owe some sense. What are you going there? The postponing indefinitely, does that mean that we never bring it back? Or if he comes back and says, I want to do it, does that reinstate the motion? What happens?
It does reinstate the motion.
Okay.
It just,
I don't think.
And I think that the purpose for the postponement is for that opportunity for clarity from the maker of the motion.
Right.
And so it's not eliminating the motion per se. It's just if it wants to be brought back up, it can be by the maker.
Why don't we just keep it open then until he clarifies and then do it?
But it doesn't have to, by doing this motion, it doesn't have to be on the agenda every month. Is that correct?
That's correct. And then what that can do is it can be brought back up for consideration easily enough. That's not the issue. It's just that we're not, it's not always in the old business until we get it, the detail that we need. Tad, am I interpreting things correctly here?
Yeah. And I'd like to remind everybody that the only question on the table on the floor right now is whether to postpone this motion or not. Not to talk about the motion, not to talk about the value of abrogation or not. It's only whether to postpone.
Right.
Okay.
Very good. Does any other discussion on the motion on the floor?
No.
Well, did you
Okay.
want to?
I have a poll ready to go.
Okay.
If you want to can launch the poll.
Okay, let's go for it.
Now
then,
this will
please.
be a multiple part. I want to have something on record that people have put a motion by vote on there. There will be manual additions of people that for some reason can't do it. Okay. So I'm going to launch the poll to postpone the abrogation motion,
People.
and you will vote as you see fit here. Okay. Ready?
Yes or no?
Two.
No?
No.
No postpone?
No postpone.
Okay, and we'll end the vote here in 5.
Wait, hold on. I think we haven't voted.
Do I need to?
You voted? Okay.
No, that's right.
Okay.
Okay, and then we need to make sure that, Julie, did you vote online? Nope. Okay, so none of us here in person have voted.
Okay. Julie and Patrick, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I abstain.
Okay.
And I vote for it.
And Beth voted for it. Thank you, Beth. Okay, let's take a look here and see what we have. I'll end the poll and I'll share the results. Okay, we have a yes 4, a no 1, and abstain 1. That's the poll itself. So that comes out to be, okay, then we now have, that's the 4-1-1, and then Julie voted yes. Patrick abstained.
Correct.
Beth voted yes.
Correct.
So 6 yes, 1 no, 2 abstain. And we'll double check that because maybe it's a manual thing. We are 2 people and I only see 1 vote, but we'll get that taken care of. Right now, the motion carries.
Very good. Okay.
And I will
Now,
double check the numbers to be sure. So it's postponed indefinitely.
okay, for the time being. And then what we need to do, go ahead and close that.
Yeah.
The poll.
Okay.
And there's obviously going to be some follow-up here on that motion with Frank over the next 30 days. And myself or Will or a combination of the both of us will reach out to him. What I want to do now, while we're in this voting mode and while I've got a quorum, and then it's the last thing that we need to do, is we have a motion from our treasurer, but not as the treasurer, as a member. And actually, this would be from the treasurer technically, that he would like to introduce under new business.
I move that we remove the Multnomah Neighborhood Association funds from the SWNI accounts, where only SWNI can write a check, to Umpqua Bank, where our own officers can write a check.
So that sounds very, does anybody have any questions? Is there a pro and a con section, or is there anybody have any questions about what Tad's motion here? The logic behind it here is that it's now that we have got our 501c3 status, we can we don't need the services of SWNI to handle our bookkeeping, and we have money. We can do our own bookkeeping now, and to do that, we have to take our money that SWNI manages and put it into our own bank account. And we have the C3 bank account is at Umpqua Bank in downtown in the village. So it would be that last step of 501c3 autonomy, if you will. Does anybody have any questions about this motion or about the logic behind the motion, or for or against? Thoughts? Corinne, please go ahead. Oh, Beth first and then Corinne.
Clearly,
Second?
Sure, go-
Has there been a second?
Oh, no, Beth, thank you. There has not been a second.
Seconded.
So we do need a second. Yes, and Beth, is that correct, Beth? You want to second that motion?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, very good. Now we go into the discussion, and Corinne, you're up.
I want to keep this super brief, but just why this has to be a motion if we voted as a membership to become a 501c3 and independent a couple months ago, why this is part of the motion process. I'm just kind of curious in the process of it, and hopefully it's a brief answer and we can take it offline. And if it's not necessarily, but I'm curious why this has to be a motion to move our funding from SWNI to.
Awesome question, Corinne. Tad, do you want to take it? I can answer too.
I don't have a prepared answer for that. It's the main reason for making it a motion is that we are still, according to our bylaws, a member governed group, and moving funds from it. This isn't the same as just moving funds from one bank to another. It's moving funds from SWNI to our own bank account. It's changing the way we manage our own money. And maybe it's not necessary to make a motion on this, but for the sake of transparency, I guess, we're making an motion.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you for that clarity. I appreciate it.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions as to the motion, the need for the motion, the logic behind the motion, that sort of thing? Okay. All right. I'll end discussion on this then, and let's just take this to a vote. We'll be doing the exact same thing that we did previously with the poll. So Will? I think Will's probably typing in the poll question right now. Will? Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay, there it is. Yes. So all those in favor vote yes online on Zoom. There are 3 people that will be voting here in person, myself, Julie, and Patrick. And then, of course, if we have a second member of a voting member in your household, use that poll there. Okay, let's see here. Has everyone had a chance to vote? Does that represent everybody there, Will? 6. 6, 7. Ooh, we barely have 10. Holy smokes. Okay, well, we can't hear you, so I'm going to explain it here.
I'm sorry, I'm muted. I'm back.
Oh, okay.
We got 6 out of 6 that were on the poll officially said yes. So I'm going to poll the people who did not officially do. Julie, how did you vote?
Yes.
And Patrick?
Yes.
And Beth?
Yes.
Okay, that's 3. There's actually 7 people there. Okay, so it passed unanimously. That's the end of the process. I'll drop the poll.
All righty. That was the last of the new business. And that is the last action item that we had for the meeting. It is 8:50. Keep in mind that next month we have the representative from Southwest Equity Coalition coming here to speak. Keep in mind that we have graffiti abatement coming up. We've got, wait a second. We've got the graffiti abatement event. We need folks to show up there. I'll be there, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. We have the Solve event, same situation there. We've got, Bryn, what am I missing? I know I'm missing something here.
Street painting or street intersection mural painting in June, but probably some more things coming up ahead of that. But June 17th for the intersection mural painting.
Okay, sounds good. But April sounds like April is in the short term. We've got those 2 April events. I really appreciate all of you. I'll take a motion to adjourn. Anybody want to throw a motion my way?
So moved.
Motion to
Done.
adjourn.
Many, many thanks. Okay.
Move to
Okay, I'm
Beth,
going to end the
Beth,
recording.
I'll give you a call a little bit later. Oh, go ahead and unrecord. Stop the recording.